Something has gone wrong. You felt it. You finish a movie, close your laptop, and there's nothing there. No weight, no echo. You're not even sure what you watched. You pull out your phone 20 minutes into a game that should have you gripped because some part of your brain decided, correctly, that nothing real was at stake, and you wonder if it's you. If you've grown out of it, if your attention span has finally been destroyed by the algorithm, it hasn't. The problem isn't you. The problem is that most of what gets made today has stopped trying to pull you in and started trying to talk at you. Here's the first law of storytelling, and it's one that almost nobody in a studio greenlight meeting seems to remember. The moment an audience knows they're watching something made by a real person with an agenda, the spell is broken. That's it. That's the whole thing. It doesn't matter how expensive the production is. It doesn't matter how relevant the theme is. The second you feel the writer's hand on your shoulder, nudging you toward the correct emotional response, it's over. You're no longer inside the world. You're sitting in a seat being lectured. Think about the last time a story genuinely got you. Really got you. You weren't thinking about it. You were in it. The characters felt like people. Their problems felt like real problems. The world had weight and logic, and you bought it completely. That feeling, that total surrender, is not a luxury. It's not a bonus for good storytelling. It is the storytelling. Everything else is furniture, and right now, that feeling is being murdered at scale. Now, here's the thing that makes it worse. And this is the part that frustrates me most, because it's such a spectacular own goal. The films and games killing their immersion are often doing it in service of a message, a thing they want you to feel or believe or understand. They care deeply. They have something to say, and by saying it directly, by making it visible, by writing characters who exist to carry the message rather than to live, they guarantee you will not receive it. You can't be moved by a symbol. You can only be moved by a person. When a character exists to represent an idea, they stop being a character. And the moment they stop being a character, you stop caring what happens to them. And the moment you stop caring what happens to them, the message they were built to carry lands in empty air. This is the paradox. The harder you push the message, the less it lands. Look at the most politically and morally powerful films ever made, and almost none of them work by stating their case. They work by putting you inside a human life and making you feel the weight of it. You come out changed not because someone told you something, but because you experienced something. That's the mechanism. That's always been the mechanism. When you bypass it, when you decide the message is so important it must be said plainly, you don't get a stronger message. You get a weaker one, wrapped in a film nobody finishes. There's a word that screenwriting teachers use constantly, and that studio executives seem to have quietly agreed to stop believing in subtext. Subtext is what a scene is really about, underneath what it's ostensibly about. Two people arguing about money who are really arguing about whether they still love each other. A soldier cleaning his rifle who is really deciding whether to live. A child asking for a bedtime story who is really asking, am I safe? This is how human beings actually communicate. We almost never say the thing directly. We circle it. We approach it sideways. We protect ourselves with displacement and deflection and indirection. And in that gap between what's said and what's meant, literature lives. When you write text instead of subtext, when characters say exactly what they mean and what the writer wants you to think, you don't get clarity. You get a vacuum. Because the audience's imagination has been locked out. There's nothing for them to do, nothing to figure out, nothing to feel toward. Great storytelling is an act of controlled withholding. You give the audience just enough that their own imagination does the heavy lifting, and what their imagination produces is always more powerful than what you could have put on screen, because it's theirs. It comes from inside them. That's not a technique. That's respect. Let's talk about characters. Because this is where I see the most damage being done. A character is not a vehicle for plot. A character is not a delivery mechanism for themes. A character is, in the terms that actually matter, a human heart in conflict with itself. That phrase isn't mine. Faulkner said it. He said the only thing worth writing about is the human heart in conflict with itself. And he was right, but I want to push on it a little because I think people hear it and think it means write sad, complicated, morally compromised people. And yes, but that's only part of it. What it really means is write people who want things that cost them something. Write people whose virtues and flaws are not decorations but engines. Write people whose goodness makes them vulnerable, whose strength creates blind spots, whose love is the thing that undoes them, or saves them, or both at once. This is what makes a character real. Not relatability, not likability, not being someone the audience would approve of. Dimensionality, the sense that this person could surprise you, the sense that they are more than the sum of what the plot requires of them. And here's what I want to be clear about. This is not just for intimate dramas. This is not just for quiet character studies. The hero of an epic needs this just as much as anyone else. You can write a warrior, a chosen one, a figure of legend, and if they are alive, if they contain real conflict, real cost, real humanity, audiences will follow them into hell. The epic fails when the hero is perfect, when there's no doubt, when the battle is just spectacle without stakes rooted in character. You can throw all the budget in the world at a set piece, and if the audience isn't holding their breath for this specific person, the spectacle is just noise. Let me come back to the immersion thing, because I want to go deeper on it. The greatest trick storytelling can pull is making you forget it's storytelling. When it works, you are not watching. You are there. You are in the room. You are in the body. You feel the cold and the fear and the hope. And when it ends, when the lights come up or the credits roll, there's a moment of genuine disorientation, because you have to remember where you actually are. That experience, that total submersion, is what people are actually hungry for. Not a particular genre, not a particular kind of hero, not a particular message. The hunger is for reality inside fiction, for something that feels true, and you cannot get there through a story that wants you to know it's a story. You cannot get there through characters who exist to serve a function. You cannot get there through dialogue that states its subtext. You cannot get there through a narrative that is contrived, meaning shaped too obviously by what the writer needs to happen rather than what would actually happen. Given these people in this world, contrivance breaks immersion faster than almost anything else, because it reminds you there's an author every time a character does something a real person wouldn't do. Just because the plot needs it, you're kicked out. Every time an event happens on cue, too neat, too perfectly timed, you're kicked out. Every time the story reaches for resolution before it's earned, you're kicked out. The audience is incredibly sensitive to this. They may not be able to name it. They'll just say it felt fake. And they're right. It was. Here's what I keep coming back to. Audiences are not stupid. They are not passive. They are not simply content to be entertained. They want to be transported. They want the experience of being genuinely somewhere else, inside a life that isn't theirs, feeling things they couldn't have felt any other way. That desire is ancient. It's what stories have always been for. It's why cave paintings exist. It's why every civilization has mythology. The need to enter another life, to feel beyond the edges of your own experience. That is one of the most fundamental human needs there is. And right now, in the most resource-rich, technology-rich, talent-rich moment in the history of storytelling, that need is being chronically unmet. Not because the talent isn't there. It is. Not because the stories aren't worth telling. They are. But because something in the machine, the committee, the fear, the ideological checklist, the desperation to be relevant, has convinced too many people that the way to reach an audience is to address them. It isn't. The way to reach an audience is to make them forget they are one. So what do you do with that? If you make things write, direct, design, script, I'd say start from the character. Start from a person who wants something and can't easily have it. Figure out what it costs them. Follow that cost wherever it leads. Don't worry about the message. If you've written a true human being in genuine conflict, the message will be there. It will always be there. You can't write real human experience without meaning leaking into every frame. And if you're an audience, which you are, I'd say trust your instincts. If something isn't landing, it's not because you've lost the ability to feel. It's because the story isn't doing its job. The appetite is there. The hunger is there. The question is whether the people making things will remember how to feed it. I think they will. I think they have to. Because the alternative, an audience that stops believing stories can be real, is a loss I don't want to think about. And as always, stay frosty.